Deconverted man here. What you're about to see may shock you and scare you, but I assure you, it's completely normal. But before I show you it, I have to explain it's actually my past self's fault. See, my hair was out of control, and so I went to a barber. I said, I want it cut short. But in my haste, I did not explain what I mean by short. Therefore, well, he decided what short means. Please try to remain calm. Ah! 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 It grows back. So, um, anyways, let's pretend that everything's the same. As it's always been, and nothing has changed. So, speaking of nothing changing, let's go ahead and look at this video by capturing Christianity, featuring Apologetic Squared. Apologetic Squared made a video where he was like, all atheists should delete their channels. So I think I made like, should all Christians delete themselves or something in response? I don't remember. It's been a while. So two great titans of apologetics meet up here to talk about it. And you know what? I don't feel comfortable showing my head anymore. I don't know that I ever felt comfortable showing my head, to be honest. But right now, I'm just a little bit self-conscious. So I think I'll just turn back into my avatar at some point in time. Ooh. The one good thing, though, I think I can see my head move when I do it. Like, Can you see, like, my head move? Okay, anyways, let's not waste any more time. And get this. Now, I'm not going to cover the whole video because it's 48 minutes long. And if I covered it, I'd be here for, like, 24 hours or something. I don't know. So he wrote on this board, do what you believe is your greatest obligation. Do what you believe is your greatest obligation. That's what he wrote on the board, and I hit the wrong button, so now his thing disappeared. There we go. Okay. So that's what he's written. Now, what he means by that, we'll see in a moment, I guess, and or listen to in a moment here. Let me just crank the volume so you guys, girls, robots, etc., can indeed see that, and so let's
So do whatever you think is your greatest obligation. Now, this principle, it's what does most of the heavy lifting in this argument. Okay. It has some radical implications if you accept this kind of obligation principle. You do whatever your greatest obligation is. Like the moral obligation in that scenario, it seemed greater than your epistemic obligation. It seemed like weightier, so you went with it. But this principle here, I have another thing prepared to like kind of illustrate how this principle can lead to some weird conclusions. So here's a paper, and on it I've written your greatest.
Okay, so hey, look, can't see my head anymore. See how my hair and my avatar is? That's how short I wanted it. I'm gonna be complaining about this for a while. Anyways, all right. So it's funny this thing because you'll often see on the internet, believe what this note says because the note said it,
like the atheist sort of meme, right? And it's like everything on this paper is true, right? And the point of it is that you shouldn't believe what a thing says to believe merely because it says to believe it. And so it's kind of like, well, the Bible is true because the Bible says it's true. So this note paper is true. So this is a similar vein of that. But he's actually using this for, believe it or not, he's going to be using this for some form of apologetic to promote this idea, I guess. Now I commented already about this, and what I was going to comment actually, surprisingly enough, was already commented by a different apologist, dry apologist, who I did a thing with ages back. And he made the point that I wanted to make about this, but I don't want to spoil things. So, anyways, your greatest obligation is to believe everything written on this paper. Already, no, because this is circular. There's no reason to think that this is my greatest obligation, or that indeed I have a greatest obligation of anything ever, let alone why it would be that idea in and of itself. So very circular.
This obligation is to believe everything written on this paper. Okay. And we'll imagine Jim. Jim is this agent who follows the obligation principle, and he comes to believe that what's written on this paper is true. He believes that his greatest obligation is, in fact, to believe everything written on this paper. Okay. So then, how is Jim going to live his life? Well, he's going to live his life working very hard to make sure he continues to believe what's written on this paper, because that's his.
Yes, and this is the thing that skeptics, well, not I tried to rally against, is this sort of closed-minded thinking where you're self-fulfilling your own beliefs. Your confirmation bias is what this is. I'm going to spend every amount of time and energy devoted to making this true rather than finding out if it is indeed true. I'm not going to spend time and energy trying to show it's not true. I'm going to spend time and energy making sure that I keep believing that it's true. So it's completely the opposite of skeptical thinking. Now, maybe he's going there. He isn't. But
greatest obligation, right? So, Jim,
and that's what he believes.
That's what he believes. So then because he believes that that's his greatest obligation, then he's going to spend more time working to believe the paper, which solidifies that that's his belief, that that's his greatest obligation, which solidifies that he's going to spend more time trying to believe it. Like, it's this kind of loop. His belief anchors him into believing it. And then
right, and that's a problem, because you don't want that. You want a free mind. You want a mind able to question everything, including the idea that you should question things. So people sometimes will do that every now and again, where I'll say, I'm skeptical, and they'll be like, oh, you're skeptical of being skeptical. And it's like, yes, you can be. You run that through the thing, and it works, because you're like, well, should I doubt stuff? And you're like, well, the fact that I'm doubting whether I should doubt stuff means to some degree that doubting things must be useful. Else, why would I question why I'm doubting things? Like, it's similar to if you say, I need evidence for everything, and then the person says, aha, what's your evidence for that? And you go, well, wait a minute. Why are you asking me for evidence of it? And they said, well, because you said that we need evidence for everything. Right. So you're saying you need evidence for that now. Right. So you're agreeing with me that we need evidence for everything. Because if you didn't care, you wouldn't remark upon what seems like a contradiction. Right. So that's kind of wordplay here. It is somewhat semantic. And that's really kind of the point of it, is you're playing with these notions. You could say it in a way that negates, that doesn't allow for negation of itself. You could say, I'm skeptical of everything other than the idea of being skeptical. Or you could say, believe everything that isn't on this paper. Or you could say, don't believe anything on this paper, which is a paradox because, well, if I agree, then I do believe that I shouldn't believe what's on the paper, and you could go on and on like this. So,
What if we come along and we're like, Jim, this paper is ridiculous. You shouldn't be following it. Like, here's all these arguments and evidence that your greatest obligation is, in fact, not to believe this paper. It's something else. Well, Jim's going to say, well, interesting point there. What you've shown is that there's evidence against believing what's on this paper. So you give me an epistemic obligation to stop believing what's written on this paper. However, I also believe what the paper says. And it says that my greatest obligation is to believe everything written on this paper. So we have epistemic obligation versus this paper's obligation. And this is greater, so I'm going to go with the paper rather than my epistemic obligations.
Yeah, so basically, forget all the evidence against it. Don't worry about that because it's the greatest. Now, what made it the greatest? Well, the fact that it said it was the greatest. The fact that you believe it's the greatest. That's what you're giving more weight to, so that's what you keep believing in, which is, again, the opposite of skepticism. It's like, no, doubt that even more than you did before. If you didn't doubt it, start to doubt it. And if you don't doubt it, definitely doubt it and question the bleep out of it and add more to it. The more that you think it might be true, scrutinize it even harder. So this is like the inverse of that. Rather than doubting it more, investigating it more to make sure to see that it's wrong, make sure, like trying to prove it wrong, I'm going to do everything to try to prove it right. And I'm going to justify it in every way possible, including ignoring evidence that it's not true. That's a bad idea. I'd rather go the opposite way of not confining myself to thinking in this methodology. But maybe he's going somewhere with this.
That's really interesting. Like, this belief, it anchors Jim into believing it, such that if he ever does believe it, evidence can no longer change his mind, so long as he's following this principle. Like, no amount of evidence can actually change his mind because evidence only gives epistemic obligations. But in virtue of Jim's beliefs, epistemic obligations are not his greatest obligations. They can't change his mind. So yeah, I'm going to call beliefs like this anchor beliefs, where in following the obligation principle, you're locked into believing it. Now, are there any other beliefs out there which we might think are anchor beliefs? So once you believe it, you're kind of anchored into believing it as long as you're following your greatest obligation.
I don't know. But maybe the idea of doing what you believe is your greatest obligation in and of itself is a bad idea. Maybe it's flawed. Maybe it's not well thought out. Maybe it's not worded correctly. Maybe it's not true in every single situation. Maybe it's true in some situations, but not in others. So there's questions that I have about that. See, that's skeptical thinking. That's, analyzing and being critical of it and say, well, what about this? How about that? If I look at it this way, what if I tacked it that way? What about this? Whatever. So this is just saying, just believe it, okay,
Well, yes, I would. So hold on, just trying to find where I am in my notes. Yes, okay. So the other thing I would say is an anchor belief is Christianity. Like,
why? Like, how did you get there from there? Like, how is it an anchor belief? Like, just saying it is, okay, you kind of defined anchor belief, but you didn't really fully flesh out how you identify an anchor belief. But again, I'm asking questions, and we're not here to ask questions and be skeptical. We're here to do apologetics.
If you are a Christian, then you'll know that your greatest obligation is to love God. But like not just somewhat, but like to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. It literally says this is your first and greatest commandment, and the Bible says the greatest obligation right there.
Yes, and so what? If the paper can say whatever you want it to say, and the Bible can say anything or everything or nothing at all, and it can change, and you can add things to it. You could write on the back of that paper and add more to it. You could write on in the edges of the corners of that paper on the front of it and add more to it if you wrote small enough. So you could actually make somebody that believes whatever's written on the paper longer than what's currently on the paper and add additional things that they now must believe. This is a problem and not a good idea. So yeah, I mean, maybe maybe this whole anchor belief thing is a very bad idea and not a good way to be critical of things. But keep fleshing it out. Let's see. Okay, so Christianity apparently is an anchor belief, and as Yin Yang said, presuppositional apologetics is anchored to the belief the Bible is what it claims to be, and that seems to be exactly what he's saying here. It says in the Bible, your greatest obligations to God. It says other things too, but we're just going to focus on that one verse for whatever reason, and therefore that's your greatest obligation because it's in the Bible, I guess. And you're just going to assume the Bible is actually true when it says that because just do it. Just because.
So, but loving the Christian God with the totality of your being requires, believing that the Christian God exists, and therefore believing that Christianity is true, or at least believing that the central parts of Christianity are true, and this is a central part of Christianity, like that.
Right? Yeah. To believe in magic, you have to believe in magic. Got it. Right. We don't disagree there.
God has a special status. So, by the obligation principle, you're going to be anchored into believing Christianity. And then there's no way to get out of it. Like, no matter how much evidence you're presented that Christianity is false, then you're just going to be presented with mere epistemic obligations to leave Christianity.
Right. So, again, whatever the evidence is, it doesn't matter. Just keep believing what you believe because you believe it, and it doesn't matter. Even if it's false, your belief that it's not false is greater than it being false because we don't care about the truth. We care about the belief. And, it just brings to mind this thing I've been saying lately. If you have faith, the facts do not matter. And when you have facts, you don't need faith. That's it. That's what this boils down to is lock yourself into believing this thing. There's no way out. You believe it. That's it. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. Just keep believing it. What a bad idea this is. But he thinks that this is a good idea, I guess.
That's going to be nowhere near as strong as your moral obligation towards loving God. So you're just locked in there.
So there is actually one way to get out of it, and that is just to wake up one day without that belief.
Right. So that is that wouldn't be so sorry, I'm talking about that is correct because that's not an action that you're taking. That's something that happens to you.
Right.
When we're talking about our obligations and our beliefs, we're talking about the kinds of things that we're deciding to do. And there is this objection if aliens came and just zapped my memories and my mind and then made me believe that God didn't exist, then I wouldn't be a Christian anymore, or I wouldn't believe that Christianity is true, so I wouldn't have the anchor belief. There's actually a random question. I wonder, in that scenario, when you go to heaven if you died, suddenly the aliens zap your mind, you stop believing in all the Christian doctrine, and then you go to heaven. Anyways.
That's a unrealistic scenario. But there is a realistic scenario that would be a decent question to ask, and I don't think that either of these people will actually answer the question because they won't watch this video, first of all. But even if I post the question, they won't read it and they won't answer it, I don't think. Maybe they will, but I doubt the answer would be fulfilling. But, well, I don't know. Anyway, so here's the question. There was, in fact, a human who had an operation upon their brain. They split the hemispheres for whatever reason. They needed to do it. I don't know why. But what happened was when they communicated with this person, they found two distinct personas, one that was creative and one that was analytical. There was a left brain and a right brain. And I forget which one could talk and which one had to write to communicate. But regardless, the analytical brain did not believe in God. The creative brain did. When this person fully dies, will half of their brain go to heaven and the other one perish in the depths of hell? How does that work? And there can't be an answer that they could possibly provide without pure speculation, because the Bible doesn't talk about that. It is completely silent on brain. If somebody gains amnesia that was a believer and now they're no longer a believer, do they go to heaven or hell? Now, Calvinists might say, well, they're pre-selected to be saved. So if they were supposed to be saved, they're going to stay Christian and they would never get amnesia in the first place. So they might have that as an answer, but that doesn't come from the Bible. That comes from their doctrine, their beliefs that are additional to the Bible that they've added in, if you will. So I don't know if these two guys would ever attempt to answer the more realistic question of what happens to the dual brain guy, what happens to the amnesia person. You couldn't. You'd have to say, well, it's in God's hands. I don't know. That would be the only answer you could actually give. But, there's no resolution to it. And that should, in my view, it exposes a flaw. It does. But I don't know. I guess there's some way to think around that if you're a believer. Anyways, let's get back to the thing.
Just random question. Anyways.
Yeah. My inclination is yes, but.
Yeah. So then the question is, okay, so maybe that's how deconversion happens in the real world. Like deconversion is just something that happens to us. So like when we have deconversions from like in the real world, it's akin to that alien zapping us, because deconversion is just something that happens to us.
Nope. Not for everybody that I've ever talked to about deconversion. And also listening to different deconversion stories. Of course, Neil, the 401 Atheist, does regular conversations about deconversion. Even interviewed me once. Of course, my name Dan Green was used, so it might not. It's like, where you're there? Yeah, I'm there. So yeah, no, it's not something that happens to you in that sense. So you're just wrong about that. But maybe you're saying, well, maybe it happens. So maybe occasionally that's how deconversion happens. I haven't encountered that, but I suppose it's possible.
We don't choose our beliefs.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, exactly. You don't choose your beliefs. So yeah, but that's kind of a problem if that's the truth, isn't it? You don't really choose your beliefs, but then that's finding out that you were wrong, isn't it? Which goes against this whole idea that you can't find out that you're wrong because you believe that you're right. Okay.
Yeah, if you're familiar with like all the debates around Pascal's wager, you're going to be pretty familiar also with all this question of, can you choose your beliefs? And direct doxastic involuntarism, which, okay, I know philosophy terms, like for most of them it makes sense. Like compatibilism is
All right,
it saves
whatever.
syllables
Blah,
to say
blah,
committal,
blah, blah, blah.
but like direct exastic voluntary, I think that you can act like I obviously follow like
Yeah.
on the side that you can at least somewhat influence your beliefs.
Okay.
Yourself in Christian
Yeah.
anything like even political views, philosophical views,
Uh,
you can actually influence whether or not you'll believe something or not. And this argument does entail that if your greatest obligation to love God with the totality of your being would be best fulfilled by like believing in God, then you should actually take proactive measures to believing in God.
That's completely and wholly circular in every which way that it could be. If the greatest thing that you could do is love God, which assumes that there's a God to love, then you should love God. Extraordinarily circular. Well done. Delete your channel. Oops. I hit the button the wrong way somehow. I don't know how that happened. There we go. I know what I'm doing. All right, there we go.
Or study theology, involve yourself in Christian community. One thing also that like I don't know if this is for everybody, but when I listen to classical music, I kind of feel just like my credence in theism increasing. There's no
Yeah. Do whatever it takes to feel like you're right. Don't let that doubt override you. Just whatever it is, whatever makes you feel that you're more right, do that. Yeah, influence your beliefs so that they're greater. Listen to classical music if that helps. Whatever. Listen to Jars of Clay. Do whatever you got to do. Don't look into it though. I mean, yes, involve yourself more. That way you have more of a sunk cost into it. And that's hard, makes it harder to get out. Get yourself in a community, making it harder to get out of the belief. Spend more time and energy and money on this thing so you believe in it even deeper. Do everything you can. Grind your heels into the ground and just believe even more. Man. So when are you going to come out with your own cult there, Apologetic Squared? I mean, you'd make more money. Anyway.
argument there. It's just classical music has that effect on me. This does actually lead to another objection, though. Like, okay, so you're saying that I should actually I should take any measure I can to continue to believe in the Christian God because that's my greatest obligation. So,
and it's odd that it would be this specific type of God, because why would it be that God? Other gods have made this claim that it's your greatest obligation to follow that God or that system. Other things have made this claim too. But this is aimed at the person who already believes it. So you're saying, well, this is your greatest obligation according to the thing that you already believe. So, hey, Muslims, this is your greatest obligation. Keep believing in Muslim. How would this ever get anybody out of what they thought was true? This is in essence because you're saying no one should deconvert. Well, then that applies to every other religion as well. And hypothetically, you need them to deconvert so that they can go into your religion. I don't know. It just seems like maybe you didn't think this one through there, Apologetic Squared. Oh, well.
So does that mean, like, if I find myself starting to doubt Christianity, I should just find some sort of echo chamber, some sort of Christian community where they never hear any criticisms, and they all just
that's that.
Yep. I don't.
I don't know. Only talking to apologists, or other Christians, and rarely ever talking to skeptics, Apologetic Squared. That sounds right. And capturing Christianity. When was the last time you guys spoke to a skeptic or an atheist again? Just asking. Whatever.
Know what echo chamber means. Like, should I go into that community if I find myself starting to doubt Christianity? I mean, my greatest obligation, right? Not.
Yeah, do whatever you can to fight doubt. Oh, no, doubt. No, doubt is good. Doubt more. Give in to that doubt. Have you tried it? It's really good, actually. Once you embrace that doubt, You'll just feel it flow over you. And you'll know that it's true because the doubtfulness will just prove that it's true with the feeling of doubt. Oh, look at the trees. Do you see any evidence of doubt helping the tree grow? Of course not. That's how you can know doubt is true. Wait, what? No, that doesn't work? Oh, yeah, that's right.
Not going into echo chambers, that's just a mere epistemic obligation.
Yeah, geez.
And in response, I would say, like, okay, this argument does entail that as a last resort, echo chambers, if they did stop you from deconversion, would be preferable to deconversion. But
this argument. Can we even call this? Can we even call this an argument? Truly, I mean, it's one statement. You know, do what you believe is your greatest obligation. No, don't doubt things. Doubt that idea. Doubt everything. Question everything. Demand evidence of everything. Ask critical questions. Don't blindly follow authority. In fact, maybe don't follow authority whenever possible. You know, thumb your nose at it. Change the system. Buck the trends. You know, poke at things. Explore. Scrutinize. This is the opposite of skepticism. This is what apologetics has come to. This is it. This is a new low point. Well done, guys. You've run out of broken arguments. So I guess you're like, hey, let's invent a new argument. I know. I've asked for that many times. Well, Apologetics Squared, he's like, here's a new argument. Just believe it. It's not a new argument. It's an old argument, though. Seidenbergengate made this argument. Just keep believing it. That's it. It's true because it said it's true. And
I mean, you're not in any way like forced to go directly to an echo chamber if you start doubting. And actually, echo chambers make your worldview really fragile. And if you ever run into any criticism of it, rather.
Well, wait. How do you know that echo chambers have that effect? Do you have any proof about? No, you don't. Okay, whatever. Just yeah. Again, I'm asking critical questions. It's like I expect them to have research that proves that echo chambers have a negative effect on people.
You should prefer like ways of maintaining credence in theism that do fulfill both your greatest obligation towards loving God and your epistemic obligations, if possible. Like, say,
why? Why should you? I mean, that's not part of the thing. It didn't say love God with all your heart. Also, be sure to avoid echo chambers. That's not in the Bible. So, where are you getting this idea from? You know, it says in the Bible to only believe people when they say stuff that's in the Bible, and you're not saying something that's in the Bible, so we should therefore doubt you because our greatest obligation is to follow the Bible, which you're not using, so therefore you're wrong. Oops. Oh no, it broke everything.
Studying theology or something like that. So
yeah, there's more healthy ways of dealing with that. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would interrupt if it wasn't coming clear. I did want to say though that we're going to take some questions and objections. If you have an objection to anything that's been said so far, let me know in the live chat and I'll pull it up.
Well, I mean, this is way after live chat happened, and this is my objection. It's so wrong. It's presuppositionalism 101. That's all this is. All right. Anyways, I'm not gonna play more because I'm gonna go into the Q&A and all that, and you can listen to the whole video if you want. That wasn't the point of this, to do a full breakdown of it. And here's the amazing part I wanted to highlight, because I think that it's important when people say things that are correct to highlight that. Okay, so now I don't agree with everything here. It's great that you had Apologetics Squared on. Why? Okay, anyways, whatever. Objection. What if somebody agreed that the greatest commandment is to love God with all their heart, soul, and mind, but that loving God with all their mind requires them to seek about the truth about God, yet seeking truth about God could, and it does this runoff thing. I don't know why it does this. Hold on. Maybe it does that because it's big? I'm not really sure. There we go. Okay, here we go. Okay. Okay. Seek the truth about God, yet seeking the truth about God could result in them determining that Christianity is not true. Okay. So, yeah, that's what basically happened to me is I didn't see it in that particular way, but I investigated to see if Christianity was true, and I was like, well, it's not, so I'm done, right? But this is digging down your heels into the dirt and saying, no, I'll never find that out because I can't find that out because my obligations to not find that out. So that's why nobody should ever deconvert because it's absolutely this is super true, and you don't want it to not be true. And yeah. So anyways, that's that video. So I have a thing that was supposed to be tomorrow, but it's not going to be tomorrow, I guess. So it's going to be a thing at some point. I don't know when anymore. So I'm not going to announce it. I'm just going to allude to it, and you're going to be like, wonder what this thing is. It's going to be amazing, I hope. Yeah, well, it's going to be something. Yeah. Anyways, be confused about what that might be. Look forward to it and stuff. Or don't. I don't know. Leave a comment. Post a thing. Thank you. Good video. Bye. Finn. Alright. Well, that was that video. What other stupid things can I complain about now? What's this? Politics? Yeah. No, I'm not gonna. No, that's too stupid.